speaking to mama bears and grandma bears. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit of physiology, a little bit of medicine, and to Heather's point, I'm going to try and avoid the big words, the phrases, and just um, keep this really, really basic. So we're going to talk about that. There's what's called the March algorithm. An algorithm is different than a protocol. A protocol is something that we're going to work through the same way, no matter what. That's not how March works. March is an algorithm, meaning we're always going to start at the same place and we're going to assess our casualties, the person who's injured, whether they fell off a bike or had a catastrophic wreck or they fell off of a ladder or whatever might have happened. We're going to assess them the same way. And so we start, it's actually S March E. And so the S is scene safety, right? I have to be safe. The scene has to be safe because I don't want to get injured as well. And our priority of scene safety is me first, and then my partner, and then bystanders, and then the casualty. And a lot of people miss bystanders, but what they don't quite understand is that bystanders can really complicate the situation. And so I want to make sure that the bystanders aren't going to be a threat to me or the people that I love. And if I can, I want to try and get the bystanders on my side if they're there. Hey, call 911, hold pressure here, go up there and block traffic, run in the house and get my first aid kit, whatever it might be. If I can get the bystanders on my team, I want to do that. All right. So the first S is safety. And again, priority and safety is me first, because I can't help anybody if I'm a casualty. Then my partner or partners, whoever I'm working with, then bystanders, then the casualty, which then brings us to March. The M in March is massive bleeding. Okay. And so when we talk about trauma medicine, trauma means massive bleeding. That's what people have to understand. It's a severe amount of blood loss. The blood is physiologically, it's going to do a couple of things for us. It has many jobs. But the two primary things we're concerned about in a trauma situation is, one, the blood is an oxygen delivery device. And so if you don't have enough blood inside your body, you don't move enough oxygen, you don't exchange oxygen and CO2 across the alveoli of your lungs. And so that's a respiratory issue. So blood loss complicates respiratory issues. And blood also moves heat around the body. And so you can get hypothermic if you due to blood loss. We will eschew the conversations around hypovolemic shock and acidosis and all that stuff. And we're just gonna keep this like, grade school level here. So blood does two things. It moves oxygen around the body. It does many things, but we're concerned with two. It moves oxygen around the body and it moves heat around the body. The more blood we lose, the harder it is to make sure the casualty is going to stay on this side of the dirt. And that's why you might realize, like, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff, and it's because I love people and I want good people to have good kits. We are up to 133 lives saved with Refuge Medical kits since we started this company in my barn 5 years ago. And we take our mission statement very seriously, to save lives while in service to the Father's kingdom and experience the abundance of his provision and blessing. And abundance doesn't mean that I have a yacht and a lake home and a summer home on the beach. Abundance means I have everything I need and most of what I want, and I'm surrounded by good people who share our mission. So massive bleeding is going to be statistically about 90%, 92% of the issues that we are going to run into, which means 9 out of 10 times our issue in a trauma setting is going to be blood loss. And so our kits are heavy on preventing blood loss. And that's why it's the first part of the algorithm is M, massive bleeding. Next is airway and respiratory. And airway and respiratory represents about 7% statistically, and these statistics come from the Committee on TCCC, which is the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care. They push their protocols over to TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, on the civilian side, and then A lot of those protocols and a lot of that information has been adopted by the American College of Surgeons, which informs the NAEMT, National Association of Emergency Medical Treatment or Technicians, rather. Sorry, I'm on cup of coffee number 2, and I plowed the first cup of coffee. And then NAEMT informs the National Stop the Bleed protocol. So this is all based on science. This is all based on statistics and math, and it's real battlefield medicine that we can apply to our everyday lives because our physiology is the same. We all have blood inside of us and we all breathe air. And if we stop either one of those things, we're not here anymore. So our March, massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, then circulation, head injury, hypothermia, everything else. We're predominantly concerned with MAR, massive bleeding, airway, and respiratory. Okay, that's predominantly what we want to be concerned with as first responders on scene, and then we want to elevate to a higher level of care as quickly as possible. Call 911, get them started to your position as soon as possible, ASAP. So if most of our problem, and I'm going to do a little bit more teaching first, and then we'll talk about kits, because this is not a sales pitch. This is to help our sister Heather and everybody else who is paying attention, wants to know this information. If 9/10 of our problem, 90% of our problem is massive bleeding, we need to know how to deal with massive bleeding. So in a nutshell, there's 3 different ways that we can address massive bleeding depending on where it's located in the body. This is PPT, pressure, packing, and tourniquets. Okay. So in our extremities, our arms and our legs, the arteries, and the arteries are like the super highways of blood inside of your body. They're the blood going out, and then they return through the venous system, the veins, back towards the heart. All right. So our arteries run along the inside of our physiology. That's really cool because back in the day, we used to fight each other with swords and sticks and stuff like that. And we would get wounds to the outside, which would be venous bleeding, which can still take you out of the game, but not at the rate that arterial bleeding can. Arterial bleeding, when you see it, is large volumes of blood, just obscenely large volumes of blood. It's what I call, and Heather mentioned in her video, she said, Bear's kind of an alpha male, and I don't always understand what he's talking about, but I kind of just smile and nod and play along. Massive bleeding for me, you will know it when you see it, but I call it, oh shit, bleeding. It's like, wow, that's a lot of blood. Okay. And so in our extremities, because the arteries run along the inside of the physiology, what we want to do, whether it's with tourniquets or pressure bandages or direct pressure, is pinch the garden hose that is the artery against the bone. If you've ever taken a garden hose and kinked it and just turned it off, that's the same exact thing that we are doing with wound packing, with pressure bandages, with tourniquets, with direct pressure, is we are just pinching the hose off so that the blood cannot come out. Now, it used to be taught back in the day, before we had all the wonderful data from the Committee on TCCC, life over limb. You only apply a tourniquet if the person is going to die, because they will lose their limb if you put a tourniquet on. We now know that that's not true. We have lots and lots and lots of data. Nobody with a Committee on TCCC recommended tourniquet, like this one here, this is a Cat Gen 7. Nobody has lost a limb due to the tourniquet. They've lost a limb due to the injury that required the tourniquet in the first place. So the tourniquet is not the culprit here. If you improvise tourniquets, or in some cases use tourniquets that are not Committee on TCCC recommended, you can put yourself in a situation where the person may have nerve damage, may lose the limb. But we've been doing this long enough now, 20 plus years now, that we know how to build a tourniquet that's not going to cause that to happen. So if you use a Committee on TCCC recommended tourniquet, like the Cat Gen 7, like the Soft T Gen 5, what we sell at Refuge, if you use what we sell at Refuge, not some other make-believe tourniquet or some other manufacturer that hasn't been vetted yet, you're going to mitigate that risk of losing the limb. That's part of why you should buy real tourniquets. Another reason is because fake tourniquets break, and then we lose the pressure on the artery, and then the person continues to bleed. Okay. But the idea here is we're pinching the garden hose against the bone structure. So for adults, now let's there's the basics of the medicine there on massive bleeding. Just very, very basic level. Let's talk about tourniquets real quick. This is a committee on TCCC recommended CAT, Combat Application Tourniquet Generation 7. Okay. And these are now ubiquitous. You can find these in ambulances now, in hospitals now, although they're not as prevalent as one would think, and most people are not trained on how to use them. So very simple. Here's the parts, all right? We have our windlass here. This is the stick. Up top here, this is called the C-clip. And then down here, we have the buckle. And then we have our strap. So we teach what's called the rule of thumb. And the way that works is you want to put your thumb on the C-clip. And then that way, this is going to be properly oriented no matter how I put it on. So we're going to go over the limb. Okay. We're going to grab the tail and pull and cinch that down. We also teach high and tight. You can go 2 to 4 inches above the wound, but we teach high and tight because you don't have to remember any information here other than keep it off the shoulder, because the shoulder is a ball joint. It'll move. And as that socket moves, it can work the tourniquet loose. And we don't want the tourniquet to come loose. So we're going to wrench this tight. See this? Pull down on it and wrap it around on the back. And that initial wrenching it down already begins to apply some pressure. Then we're going to take our stick and we're going to start turning. Now in training, we tell people it's one turn past bad words. When you want to start saying bad words, it's one turn past that. In training, in real life, we turn the windlass, we turn the stick until the bleeding stops. We're observing the bleeding and we want to keep turning until the bleeding stops, until the hose gets pinched off. Okay. I'm going to take my windlass, turn it up and put it inside the C-clip like that. Then I'm going to take the tail, put it in between the C-clip, and then take my time tab, this little white tab, and go over the top. This is for 2 reasons. One is, let me move the microphone out of the way so you can see. The first reason is this time tab here, we want to know ideally when the tourniquet was applied. And that has, just for a higher level of care. We might do a tourniquet conversion. That might become a timestamp on approximately when the injury occurred. So it's an important piece of data. So we're going to write the time with our Sharpie that is in the kit on here. We're also, if we put a tourniquet on somebody, going to put a T on their forehead, because if we cover that person up with a Mylar blanket, a space blanket to reflect their body heat back on them to keep them warm because they've had blood loss, and it's much easier to prevent hypothermia than it is to treat hypothermia. If they're covered up with a space blanket, the paramedics, EMTs, the docs may not know that there's a tourniquet on this patient. So we want to put a T on their forehead to indicate tourniquet so that when they get to a higher level of care, they know, oh, this person has a TQ on. Okay. So those are the 2 reasons we have the time tab here to write the time on. Or that's the first reason. Okay. Time here, T on the forehead. The second reason is this time tab retains this tail, because this tail has hook and loop on it, and it'll catch on everything. The interior of a vehicle, it'll catch on clothing, carpet on the floor, all of that. And we're going to move the casualty. It's just going to happen. Whether we do it or firefighters do it or EMTs do it or bystanders do it, we're going to move the casualty. And we don't want this to come loose. So the time tab retains this tail. Okay, so that's a really important part. The tail goes through the C-clip, and then the time tab goes over the top. If you look at the vascularity in the back of my hand right now, it's because my blood vessels have been constricted due to this tourniquet. Now watch this. Let me go ahead and pull this off. Okay. Boom. See that? See how that went away? It's because I lost constriction on the blood vessels. We don't want to lose constriction on the blood vessels with the tourniquet. In the field, we put tourniquets on. We do not take them off. Okay. We let medical professionals take them off. Now, this is the CAT Gen 7 Committee on TCCC recommended windlass tourniquet. It works on adults and it works on limbs down to 1.5 inches in diameter. So unless you have very small babies, this will work on basically everybody. Okay. This is a great tourniquet. It's also highly intuitive as compared to some of its other competitors that are out there. And that's why this is our primary tourniquet in almost every kit that we sell. Comma, maybe you do have some really little people. Little people and people in general, but especially little people in the extremities, direct pressure works great. Find the source of the bleeding and grab and hold. And it's hard for you to see here, but if you see where my thumb is, I know that the artery is running right through here on my arm. I'm going to put my thumb on that and squeeze and pinch that off. I'm going to turn that artery, the flow of blood, off just with direct pressure. And so on little people, direct pressure works great. The issue is with direct pressure is I'm now stuck to the patient. I've got at least one of my hands wrapped up. That's part of why we use interventions like tourniquets, pressure bandages, etc., so I can get my hands back, because there might be other people that I need to help, or I might need to drive this car or call 911 or whatever it is. Okay. So direct pressure, especially on little people, works great. It works on all size people, but especially on little people works great. And it has the added benefit of, if you're a parent, and your kid hurts themselves and you wrap them up in a hug, you touch them, there's comfort in that. So direct pressure on kids works really well. Comma. We also sell what is called the Slishman device, aka the Slishy. I'm going to show you that right now. And then we'll talk about what's in what kit, which kit should I get. But I want you to understand the physiology and the medicine behind it before I'm just like, go buy this kit. Okay. So you understand why go buy this kit. And you understand why we put these kits together the way that we did. Stephanie Amity. Thank you, Bear. Going above and beyond once again. Guys, I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I am passionate about trauma medicine because I don't like it when bad things happen to good people. My first introduction to trauma medicine was also my first introduction to a mass casualty event, of which I was one of the casualties. And it was in upstate New York, and there was black ice on the road, and we were on a bridge in between two mountains, and my mom was driving, and she was on black ice. She knew she was on black ice, and she was doing a fine job of mitigating the risk. The people around us in their vehicles were not. And long story short, we ended up in a 4-car pileup. I beat the windshield out with my head. I was about a week before my 18th birthday. My mom and one of my little sisters was in the car. And from the impact, I literally beat the windshield out with my head. And come to, and my mom and my sister are still in the car. I get them out of the car and get them to the end of the bridge, off the road, behind the bridge abutment. And it's winter in upstate New York. It's cold. It's getting dark. It's about 4:00 in the afternoon. And here come more cars over the top of this other hill, down onto black ice, and they start stacking up. And it ended up being about a 40-car pileup. Peterbilt, semis, log trucks, dump trucks, school buses, just coming one after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next, just smashing into each other over and over again. And I ran up and down that little stretch of highway, pulling people out of their cars, getting them off the road behind the bridge abutment. And I remember I had a decision to make. There was one guy in a minivan who was screaming when I got to him because he couldn't feel his legs. He'd broken his back and he was paralyzed from the waist down. He was just screaming the car had hit him was a young Latina woman with two little babies in the back, two little kids, like 2 and 1, maybe. I was like, I only got time. I can only evacuate one of these vehicles. I've only got time for one before literally that Peterbilt coming over the hill smashes into this pile of cars. And I went with the mom and the two little babies. And I don't regret that decision, but I don't know what happened to that guy with the broken back. I don't know. And I also, cell phones were new at this time, but I happened to have one. And I called my cousin, who was a state trooper with F Troop in upstate New York. I said, "You have got to get out here and shut the road down. You have to." I was like, "And send every ambulance you have. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm dealing with." Not only do we got an MCI, a mass casualty incident, but we're going to have people who are going to be dealing with exposure pretty quick as well. And that was my intro to trauma medicine right there at 17 years old. And a lot of people sleep on motor vehicle accidents. They don't think about it, but they don't realize statistically the most dangerous thing we do is drive. And I've seen it multiple times. And so I then taught myself everything that I could learn about this stuff and have been blessed to sit at the feet of many masters, whether they're special forces, 18 Delta medics or Navy SARCs, just Navy badass doctors with guns, or, um, you know, doctors, EMTs, nurses, paramedics, flight medics, anybody who could teach me, I have learned from. And I've gone to a couple dozen different courses throughout my life in order to learn this stuff and be better. And that's why I want to teach it to you, because I don't want this to happen to you. And if it does, I want you to know what to do. Okay. So Slishman device. It's this little thing right here. Okay. And it's rolled up. And this is basically, you're probably familiar with an ace bandage. This is just a very strong ace bandage, and it has this loop at the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to put it around the limb that I'm working on. So we'll say right here. Okay. I'm going to pull tight. See, you can already see it's starting to distend my skin. We'll pull tight. And yes, there we go. And I'm going to just start wrapping. There we go. And I'm going to keep pulling tight and keep wrapping and apply a lot of pressure. There we go. And you can already see the veins in the back of my hand starting to pop. Okay. That's the Slishman device. And disregard my tattoos. I was a heathen back in the day, but I love Christ and I love the Father now. So whatever. Okay. But I don't know if you can see, but it's applying a significant amount of pressure. It's squeezing here. And that's it. You just wrap it around, and I can absolutely feel pins and needles in my hand already. All right. And so this is a great pediatric tourniquet. And it was developed by Dr. Sam Slishman, who's a pediatric doctor who has lots of children that he loves. And he wanted to develop a product specifically for kids to prevent massive bleeding. And that's where the Slishman device came from. And it's a great product. And it works on adults. It works on children. It works on animals, dogs, livestock. It just works great. And it's basically a pressure bandage. Works awesome. Okay. So for children, for littles, I really recommend the Slishman device, AKA Slishy. This is what we call the Slishy at Refuge Medical. Okay. Slishman, Slishman, Slishman device. So for massive bleeding, our two primary interventions are going to be cat tourniquets here and Slishman devices in the extremities, in our arms and our legs. Now, you also have what are called junctional areas. These are going to be areas that move your neck, okay, your shoulders, and your pelvic girdle, your hips. Those areas, I can't get I can't wrap around those areas to apply pressure, and they move. And so in those areas, what we're going to use is a combination of gauze and pressure bandages. So now, hold on, let me put my Slishman device back in my personal adventure kit. Boom, there we go. So I'm going to use something like this. This is an Olays bandage, and in every kit that we have wound packing gauze and pressure bandages. I'm actually going to open this for you while I throw things on the floor. Okay. So this is the bandage. Comes in packaging like this, and then it's got a little nick in the packaging right there so that I can grab this and tear it open. Pressure bandages are just the world's largest band-aids. Okay. This is basically an ace bandage with a giant piece of gauze on it. Comes wrapped in some paper. So open the paper up. And then I've got this. What is this? This. And why do I like the Olays? Because in here, behind this gauze pad, is my wound packing gauze. Ready to go. Right there. So here's my gauze. Here's my pressure bandage. And this is just a big Band-Aid. Big, stretchy Band-Aid. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the end of this gauze right here. And by the way, at Refuge Medical, we have videos on all of this stuff, how to actually do this stuff, demonstrations, and like little trainings you can put yourself through at home. And so if you go to Refuge Medical, you click the training tab, you'll find a video series, which is also the trauma medicine playlist that I have free at this channel here on YouTube. So please do some training with this stuff. Teach yourself, because it's not enough to possess the kit. You have to also know how to use the kit. Just like anything else. You can go to the pawn shop and buy a saxophone, but if you don't learn how to play it, you don't know how to play the saxophone. Okay, so possession is not proficiency. So you're going to take the end of your gauze, and I tie a little knot on the end, like so, and this gets pushed into the wound with our thumbs. This is not fun, but we're doing this because we don't want this person to die. Okay, so wounds in the shoulders, the neck, the pelvic girdle. You identify the wound, you look for the wound, there it is, and you start shoving gauze into the wound. The idea with the gauze is not necessarily that it's going to soak up all the blood and form a giant clot. I'll take that if that's all I can get. But ideally, and the reason we tie this knot is because we want to centralize pressure on the bleeding vessel to pinch the bleeding vessel closed, pinch the garden hose, just like we're doing with direct pressure, just like we're doing with tourniquets, just like we're doing with the Slishman device. Okay, so I'm going to shove this gauze. If this is my wound, I'm going to shove this gauze into the wound like that until the wound is full and I cannot get any more gauze in there. And I'm applying pressure over and over and over again. I'm going to take the remainder of my gauze, put it on top like so, if this is my wound, and then I'm going to cover that with the pressure bandage. And it's a pressure bandage. That's important. So unless it's a head injuries, we just lightly wrap. Okay, we don't want too much pressure on the cranium, just lightly wrap. Everything else, stretch this thing. See how stretchy this is? Stretch it and wrap it significantly. Just because we want that pressure on the bleeding vessel to pinch the bleeding vessel closed. Okay, so that's an M in a nutshell. Massive bleeding. We're going to use pressure, packing, and tourniquets in order to pinch the bleeding vessel closed. Let me put my Olays back together again because it's mine personally. Like I literally, guys and girls, I literally went into the kitchen, opened the first aid cabinet, and pulled my adventure kit out so that we could do this together. So what's that Hair Club for Men thing? I'm not just the president. I'm also a client. That's true. Roll this back up. The Olays also has an eye shield on it as well, which is cool. This is a great product. But in all of our kits, we have pressure bandages and wound packing gauze for this reason, because 9 out of 10 times my issue is going to be massive bleeding, and I need to be able to fix massive bleeding. If it's not a massive bleed, if it's bleeding, but it's not life-threatening, if it's not, oh shit, bleeding, apply pressure, apply gauze, wrap. Wrap with what? This is called co-band or cohesive bandage. I take some gauze, and I cover it, and then I wrap with the cohesive bandage. Simple as that. So, or I take my ACE bandage, like here's an ACE bandage that's in here. So that's massive bleeding, pressure packing tourniquets. Now we get into airway and respiratory. And this is going to be, how deep do I want to go here? Airway, we just need a clear path for air from our maxillofacial region, from our nose and our mouth to the top of our lungs. Predominantly, what we're going to recovery position. You also like this is going to be on the ground. Healthy people tend to be upright. Sick people tend to be on the ground. It's why we colloquially call this dirt medicine. Okay. And notice I haven't talked about Band-Aids yet at all, because we sell a boo-boo kit. It's right here. This is what it looks like. And it's the best boo-boo kit on planet Earth. But let's deal with life-threatening injuries first, and then we'll worry about Band-Aids. Even this, our boo-boo kit has in it a stretch wrap and tuck tourniquet right here, so that even the boo-boo kit has a way to deal with massive bleeding. Okay, because I just know, right? I want you to be prepared. And in fact, this boo-boo kit was used recently. A couple of weeks ago, there was a family that was hiking, and there was another family that had some dogs. So the dogs were not well behaved. A dog attack occurred. And they were able to use this boo-boo kit to put somebody back together that had life-threatening injuries and then elevate to a higher level of care. So if I'm going to sell a boo-boo kit, it still needs to be able to address life-threatening injuries, because you just never know what you're going to be dealing with. Airway, the recovery position. Look it up. Watch the trauma medicine playlist. Watch the trainings at refugemedical.com. We're basically going to roll somebody onto their side. So blood, viscous fluids drain away from their face. We don't want them on their back, because that stuff could drain down into their airway. Their tongue could relax if they pass out and flop back and cover their airway. So roll them onto their side. There's also the chin lift and the jaw thrust methods. So basically, you're going to take your thumbs, go under the chin here, and pull up and out. And what that does is straighten the neck to maintain what's called a patent airway, just a clear pathway for oxygen to come in, for CO2 to come out from the lungs. We also have what are called nasopharyngeal airways, aka nose noodles, and you can watch videos on that. We have them at Refuge Medical. We have them at the YouTube channel here at Bear Independent. And that is if I think the person is going to go unconscious and I'm concerned about their airway, then I put a nose noodle in. And it's just a tube that goes from their nose down, goes from here, down around, back of their throat, behind the tongue to the airway. So no matter what happens now, I know that oxygen can come in, CO2 can go out. We want CO2 going out is important as well. If it doesn't, at least what's called acidosis, which is part of the lethal triad, it's called lethal for a reason. It's bad news. And so basic physiology, the person has to be able to breathe. And then we get into respiratory. Real quick, super basic physiology lesson. Your lungs are inside of a vacuum. We call this space from basically the top of your sternum, right about here, down to about your belly button, 360 degrees around. That's called the pleural space. Pleural, the pleural space. Okay. The pleural space operates in a vacuum. And when you breathe in, what's actually happening is your diaphragm is pulling down. And when the diaphragm pulls down, it causes your lungs, which are basically like balloons, to inflate. And when you exhale, the diaphragm pushes back up in that vacuum, forces the lungs to collapse. So you breathe in oxygen, you expel CO2. This is all operating in a vacuum, 360 degrees around your body. This box, as we affectionately call it, the pleural space, is in a vacuum. If you poke holes in the box, the air will take the pathway of least resistance. Instead of going in through your nose or your mouth and into your lungs, it'll go through the hole in your chest. That's called a sucking chest wound. The way we fix that is we put a sticker on it. These stickers are chest seals, and they're very, very sticky. They're very, very basic. So our kits have chest seals in them. These are halo chest seals. Some are vented, some are non-vented. I only need one vent. If I have multiple punctures to the pleural space, I just need one vented because the whole thing's connected. It's like if you had a bucket full of water and you drill a hole in it, you have to plug all the holes in order for the bucket to stop leaking. And so there are two seals in here, but everything is a chest seal. Anything that air won't pass through. This plastic bag is 2 to 4 chest seals when combined with tape. Okay, and so all we're going to do is cover the holes in the box. We're going to elevate to a higher level of care so that we can reestablish the vacuum in the pleural space so that when the diaphragm pulls down, the lungs will reinflate reliably. And reliably is the key word here. And this is definitely something all of these injuries, we're going to elevate to a higher level of care for. Okay. But punctures to the pleural space, definitely when we're triaging, triage is just a French word that means to sort. When we're sorting through the patients that we have, if we have holes in the box, we want to elevate that person. They're going sooner than the guy that has, or the girl has an injury to their arm that required a tourniquet. I've controlled that. I put a tourniquet on it. We stopped the time clock. Holes in the box. Yep. We can put a sticker on it, but that person needs to go to the hospital soonest. Then you get below the belly button, between the belly button and the groin. This is where your intestines are at, your guts, essentially. Penetrating wounds to the guts, we're just going to cover. We want to cover them, keep them moist, and that person all the way goes first. Because in any of these injuries, these people need a surgical team. If you put a tourniquet on anybody, they need a surgeon. It might just be minor surgery, but they still need a surgeon. And that's not the kind of thing that we're doing in the field. Okay. So that's massive bleeding, airway, respiratory in a nutshell. Now I'll make some recommendations. I know we're 40 minutes into this, but I wanted to teach you before I was like, hey, go buy my stuff. So now you understand why. Now you understand the why behind it. Why are these kits put together the way that they are? Okay. Heather brought up in her video, she's like, I don't know if I should buy the bare minimum or the bare fac 3.0 or the travel kit or the adventure kit. I don't know. So first things really quick, the bare fac is this, okay? The bare fac, and it's the bare fac 3.0 because we've actually had 4 iterations of this kit. The initial prototype, and then actually we've had many, the 1, the 2, the 2.5, and now the 3. So there's 5 different iterations of this kit because we just keep making it better based upon real end user feedback from the field. Because like I said, there's 133 people that are still alive because of our kits. Yes, I learned so much. Thank you. You're welcome, Heather. You're welcome. I'm trying to be a resource to you and to your subbies and to everybody else in the space here so that we know. Okay. And you need to know. And I would encourage every one of you, please go watch the trauma medicine playlist. It's free here at this channel. It's a 4-hour block of instruction, 8 videos broken down into 20 to 30-minute videos that explains all this stuff in detail, as well as teaches you how to do it so that you get the reps and sets to do it. And if you want to, you can get a trainer kit from Refuge Medical and use the trainer kit in conjunction with that video, and you'll be so much further ahead than the average person in this skill set. Okay. This is the bare fac. The bare fac is designed, it'll treat the entirety of the March algorithm. Massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, circulation, head injury, hypothermia, everything else. It's designed to do that. It's designed to exceed military specification for an individual first aid kit, meaning a first aid kit I use on me, or if I'm knocked unconscious, the medic, the corpsman, the combat lifesaver uses this kit, my kit, on me. I don't necessarily recommend this if you're a mom with an active lifestyle. If this is all you can get, it will absolutely do it. But I would also put some Band-Aids and a Slishman in this. And you can put a Slishman in it. If we open this up, on the top here, there's a loop right here for adding additional tourniquets if you want. That's where I would put a Slishman. It's right there. So now I've got pediatric bleeding control and then Band-Aids, because if you're a mom or dad, you know Band-Aids fix everything, right? Band-Aids are psychological much more than they are physiological. And then this kit just has everything you need and nothing you don't inside of it. It'll do the entirety of the March algorithm, but it's not, I don't know if it's mama friendly. It was never designed to be mama friendly. Okay. It works. Trust me, it works, but I don't know if it's mama friendly. So it's got all of our stuff that we just talked about: tourniquet, pressure bandage, Sharpie, tape, gloves. In the back here, it's got shears, and we want shears because we want to expose wounds. I'm all for modesty. I really am. But if I'm dying, cut my clothes off of me and we can all laugh about how many pounds I need to lose afterwards. Okay. When I'm alive. So and these are real shears. Hear that? They are real shears, not fake shears. And then I've got, my chest seals here. There's my nose noodle, my nasal pharyngeal airway, big gauze, etc. Burn dressings, and then all the other stuff. You know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have Band-Aids and it doesn't have a Slishman device. It should. And in fact, I will get with my team about making those available as add-ons to this kit, that if people want to. Right now, you'll have to go chase it on the website. But I would add a little sack of Band-Aids and a Slishman device if this is going to be my mama kit. But it's a comprehensive trauma IFAK. And again, trauma means critical bleeding. Our first aid kits, by and large, are not really built for Susie fell off of her bike, or I was chopping onions in the kitchen and I almost took the tip of my thumb off, which I did the other day. Because that to me is simple: gauze, pressure, cohesive bandage, tape, whatever you got. Okay. This is for my world is ending right now. We have a 2-minute problem that needs to get solved. I make students do this in class. Everybody who's listening, stick your hand out, okay? Stick your thumb up. Look at your thumb, okay? That is the diameter of your femoral artery that runs down the inside of your leg. It's a garden hose. And if we have a critical bleed in the femoral artery, we have about 90 to 120 seconds, a minute and a half to 2 minutes to fix that problem, or it's going to get really, really, really bad. Miss Rosario, that's the bare fact right there. Okay. Kathy says, I just got the Bearfact 3.0, the best med kit I ever owned. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for supporting Refuge Medical. We are a small family-owned business that makes everything in the United States of America. We guarantee everything forever. And if you use one of these kits to save a life, I will replace whatever you used up to and including the entire kit at no cost to you, because I want good people to have good kits. Now, Heather brought up the bare minimum. The bare minimum is a pretty good kit for a mama application, and I'll explain why. On this side, I've got my cat tourniquet for critical bleeds. On this side, I've got my shears, trauma naked. Get them trauma naked, expose. The part of the E in March E is expose. Same concept. I pull the lid open. And by the way, I think the bare minimum is still available. I recommend red with reflective for civilians as far as color is concerned, because I can find this in an accident. I can find it in the dark. This is 3M reflective striping. headlights and flashlights and headlamps will bounce off of this just like a fire truck. And in fact, I was inspired by fire trucks when we came out with this color. I was like, oh, we need to be doing that. Not just cool guy colors, not camo and green and brown, but we need a red with reflective. And so I recommend red with reflective for a civilian application. But we also have these, I think, in purple and in blue floral. So you might check that out. Same concept up here. I still have a loop here. I can add a Slishman device to this, a slishy if I need to. If I'm concerned about pediatric bleeding, I can put a Slishman device right here. And I can't say enough good things about the slishy. I pull this out. Here's my first aid kit. Same concept as the bare fac. This is the bare minimum. Okay, it's a slightly smaller kit. I've got my massive bleeding stuff here, gauze, quick clot for wound packing, my pressure bandage, my giant Band-Aid like I showed you, my gloves, my tape, my Sharpie. It's all right there. In the back here, I've got my burn dressing. I've got my chest seals for punctures to the box, the stickers that we put on the holes in the box. They're right there. But then down here in the bottom, I've got more boo-boo stuff. And this is why I think this might make a decent mama kit, okay? In the bottom of the bare minimum, I've got steri strips for wound closures here. If I have a laceration that I need to get this thing pulled closed, and yeah, we'll get to the hospital, but that could be 4 hours from now because we live in the sticks or whatever. So I've got steri strips for wound closure here. I've got what we call our boo-boo wipes. And so this is our BZK triple antiseptic towelettes, triple antibiotics, sting relief, et cetera, et cetera. I've got Band-Aids, regular Band-Aids, knuckle bandages, finger bandages, et cetera. Because again, if you're a parent, you know that Band-Aids are psychological, okay? I've got Band-Aids, and then I've got gauze. Boo-boo gauze here. And so there's some small gauze, some medium gauze, and some large gauze here. In conjunction with my tape, I can deal with a lot of stuff with this gauze. And so the bare minimum is a combination of trauma medicine capability, massive bleeding, airway, and respiratory, as well as more of our boo-boo stuff, our minor injuries. And that was done in an effort to A, make a more comprehensive kit, and B, to be more applicable for more people. It's not necessarily the kit I would recommend for soldiering, comma. It would work for soldiering, but it would definitely work for Susie fell off of her bike, as well as if we have some kind of catastrophic incident. And so let me put this back together. That's the bare minimum. Now, Heather, you brought up you wanted a kit that you could kind of move from the house to the car and back again. And so here's what I recommend for that, especially if you live rurally, if you have livestock. This is the adventure kit, called the adventure kit for a reason. There is basically no adventure in life you can get into that this kit is not going to can someone take Susie to the ENT? I know, James, her inner ear must be off because she has terrible balance. She's always falling off of a bike and getting injured. What's up, Cosmopolitan Cornbread? Shalom. There's no adventure in life you can get into that this kit is not going to address. It's comprehensive, okay? Our mnemonic that we like with the adventure kit is Band-Aids, broken bones, bullet holes. It'll do it all. And guys, it is packed. Let me go. Okay. It is packed. There is more stuff and better thought out stuff in this bag than there is in an EMT basic bag for sure. Like when EMTBs roll up in the ambulance, there's more in this bag than what they are carrying. I know. So the first thing to understand with the adventure, and the idea here is this can be in the house, and then when it's time to go someplace, you put it in the vehicle. Now, and that's cost effective if I mean, it's 2024 for us too. I get it. Regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're on, I think everybody has seen the cost of gasoline and groceries and rent and electricity and mortgages, and everything is up. Everything is expensive right now. We've actually at Refuge really tried to go out of our way to not raise prices if we don't have to. So it'd be nice for any of us to have you know, a grand or two to just throw at medical preps and check handled. But I know for the vast majority of us, me included, it's not that way. So if I could get one kit that I'm going to have in my house or at the homestead or on the school bus for the softball team or whatever it might be, and then move from the house to the vehicle and back, you know, like we have a 5-month-old right now. The loading procedure for a 5-month-old is like, do you have the baby? Yes, the baby's in the car seat. Where's the pacifier? Do we have the baby bag? Yes, we have the baby bag. Does it have diapers in it? Are there wipes in there? Is there milk? Do we have juice? Where's the toy thing? Where's the blah, blah, blah? Oh, we need the mat. Get the mat. Put the mat in there. Do we have the collapsible, what is that thing called? Bassinet thing. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Well, we need a change of clothes. It's like, holy crap. The baggage train for this 5-month-old, you know? It's like somebody duct tape the baby to me, stick a bottle in my back pocket. We're good to go. We'll be fine. But no. And so anyway, my point is you probably have procedures already for when you're loading from the house to the vehicle. And so as long as you make this a procedure to move from the house to the vehicle, how big is the adventure kit? Well, there's my head. It's about that big. It's maybe a foot wide, probably about 10 inches deep and 10 inches high. And I'd say it weighs about 6 pounds, 7 pounds, somewhere in there. Not quite a gallon of milk. And it also has a shoulder strap to go with it that's adjustable. And if you listen, it has metal connections. Okay. That's intentional. And of course, the shoulder strap's removable. But in here, in the adventure kit, I've got all my massive bleeding stuff, all of my March stuff. I literally have the contents of a bear fac in here. Okay, so I've got not only do I have a soft T tourniquet, so Committee on TCCC recommended windlass tourniquet, I've also got my Slishman in here, pediatric tourniquet. And then I've got my shears. I've got my airway and respiratory module here. So I've got my nasopharyngeal airway. I've got my chest seals. I've got my quick clot and quick clot and compressed gauze for wound packing. I showed you my pressure bandage on camera. Here's my pressure bandage that I opened for y'all because I love you and I know where to get more. I've got my trauma pack here that's got compressed gauze and mylar blanket and triangle bandage and rolled gauze and 2x2s, 4x4s, 5x9s. I've got my burn shield dressing if I have any burns that I've got to deal with. And then so that's my trauma medicine stuff. And then guys, there is so much gauze and band-aids and wound closure. And I mean, I've got a skin stapler in here, right? So if I have a wound that I've got to close, maybe I live out in the country, I'm 4 hours from town or whatever it is, I've got to get this wound closed, skin stapler. OTC meds, eye wash, splinting. I've got a SAM splint in here. I've got ACE bandages. I have cohesive bandages. It's got everything. And so it's designed for everything. In fact, there's a pocket back here. I've got finger splints. I've got gauze. I've got glucose. If I've got somebody who's goes into diabetic shock, right? What else do I have in here? I have liquid skin closures. I've got stuff for pulling splinters. I've got my topical creams, my triple antibiotic and my, gosh, what's that stuff called? when you get a rash on your skin, all that stuff. All that stuff is in the adventure kit. Now, I'll tell you this, the adventure kit, when it comes to pricing at our website, it can be a hard pill to swallow. But it's packed and well organized and has tons of capability. And this bag is made in America. It's guaranteed forever. And these are the best medical components on planet Earth. We only use the best because your life is worth it. Because if it was my wife or my kids, and I'll tell you this, I don't care if I saved a couple of bucks. If the kit that I bought that I saved a couple of bucks on doesn't work and I lose my wife. And that sounds maybe a little extreme, but it happens all the time. And I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to you. I want good people to have good first aid kits so that they can use them for the preservation of life. That's what Refuge is about, the preservation of life. It also has a pocket in the back here. If you want to add stuff, you can. So this is the adventure kit, and it's kind of a one and done. There's really not an application that this doesn't work for, the adventure kit. Now, last thing I'm going to tell you. You brought up the travel fact and you brought up the kiddo in your video. So I'm going to tell you both of those real quick. It pretty much is everything but the kitchen sink. What's up, HBD Off-Road? Use the meds to treat Bear and Idabel. Yeah, you did, Chicken Farmer Plus. Yeah, you did. Coffee. This is the kiddo, okay? And the kiddo is a compact trauma first aid kit. This is not, I bruised my knee at the playground, okay? That's not what this is. This is a purpose-built trauma kit, massive bleeding, airway, respiratory for kids, for little kids. One of the primary applications for this, unfortunately, is schools, but also vacation Bible schools and churches and anywhere there are children, because evil exists in this world. And as much as I don't like it, I have to be in a position to do something about it for the preservation of life. So the kiddo has a Slishman. Now, we introduced this at $49. I think it's right at $59 now. The introductory pricing is worn off, but you can use promo code BearNation for free shipping on everything in the store. What add-ons for the adventure kit do you recommend? What's up, Patty Sanchez? Definitely a Slishman device, and then also having, I think, a pulse oximeter is great because that gives me a little bit of data to work from. How well is their respiration working? What's their oxygen, blood oxygen saturation? Something I want to know. So the kiddo has a Slishman pressure wrap in it, a 2-pack of Halo chest seals, compressed gauze, a compression bandage, right? Gauze and bandage for wound packing, as we talked about, a Mylar blanket to mitigate hypothermia, flat duct tape, and a pair of gloves. And there's the Slishman right there. It was $49 when we started. I think it's $59 now after that introductory pricing. But this is great. Guys, it's that big. There's my hand. Glove box, backpack, mom or dad's day bag, whatever, school desk drawer, anywhere. This is a great little kit. Now, lastly, and then I've got to run because speaking of kids, I've got some kid stuff to do today. This is the travel fac, and this is specifically designed to go on the headrest of your car. This comes with a mounting platform with a couple of straps. You put it around the headrest of your car. And so it goes with you all the time, wherever you go. I have 2 of these in my truck on the back of the 2 front seats. I've got my cat tourniquet up here, like we talked about, for massive bleeding in the extremities. And then inside of here it's a pouch within a pouch. You might notice that in a lot of the stuff that we do. I can grab this red handle. Again, you'll notice part of our ethos, part of how we build things at Refuge is look for the red handle. I can pull the inner pouch out of the outer. Okay, now this stays stuck to my headrest. I've got my little pen light for examinations. I've got my Sharpie. I've got my TQ if I need it. And then I've got this, okay? And I pop this open, and here's my first aid kit. Now, again, with kids, there's my Slishman device right there. There's my pediatric tourniquet for kiddos right there if I need it. I've got gloves because if it's wet and not yours, don't touch it. Great rule for life. I've got a compression bandage right here, okay, for applying pressure for wound packing. I've got my gauze for wound packing right here. I've even got a Mylar blanket right there for mitigating hypothermia. So massive bleeding, good to go. I've got my shears, real shears down here in the bottom. And then we have this bottom pouch down here in the travel fac. And in the bottom pouch, there's all kinds of stuff. So let me pull that out. I have flat duct tape because I can do a lot, even in a medical setting with duct tape. Got my OTC meds, right? Acetaminophen, ibuprofen. Mom, I got a headache. My bones hurt. Benadryl. You get stung by a bee or eat something you should have eaten, whatever it might be. I've got my OTC meds. I've got my boo-boo wipes right here. And so disinfectant, sting relief, triple antibiotic, etc. I have petrolatum gauze, useful for burns. And then this packaging is also useful for plugging holes in the box. This is great stuff, petrolatum gauze. I have my Band-Aid bag. Oh no, Susie fell off her bike again. We need a Band-Aid. And it's with me in my vehicle. And then I've got my chest seals, pair of chest seals. Got a hole in the box. We put the stickers on it. Okay. And so the travel fac is specifically designed to be a vehicle kit. That's what it's for. It's designed to be mounted to the headrest in your vehicle, that if something happens, you can, if you are in a head-on collision, you can literally reach behind the headrest next to you and pull this kit off of you and use it. That's what it's designed for. And then incidentals. We go to the park and Jimmy falls off of the monkey bars and gets all beat up. Okay, we got a first aid kit with us. And so that's the travel fac. All of this stuff is from Refuge Medical. If I had to make a recommendation, what I would do, twas I you. If, obviously budget is a consideration in everything in today's day and age. But I would put a travel fac in my house because that's what I've done. I'm sorry. I would put an adventure kit in my house. Which one's the adventure kit? The big one. This guy. Because this is literally mine. I literally took it out of the cabinet in the kitchen where our first aid stuff is at. Okay. My children request to see a shark and a turd if you're able. Yes, I'll do that very quickly. All right. I would literally have an adventure kit in my house because it covers everything. Then in my vehicle, I would put a travel fac, at least one on a headrest. And then I would have in my purse, in my backpack, whatever, I'd have a kiddo in case something, and I can use all this stuff on adults too, but it will definitely work on kids. I'd have a kiddo and a tourniquet, boom, blowout kit right there. And then some kind of boo-boo kit, whether you make your own or you get one from Refuge Medical, Band-Aids, tape, gloves, some kind of boo-boo kit. I mean, and this is a stupid comprehensive boo-boo kit. But see, it has these lashing points right here. You know why that is? So you can lash this to a bicycle. I get a lot of people who are like, I ride bikes, mountain bikes, or, cross-country biking. What should I get? That's what these lashing points are for right here on the end of this kit. So you can tie it, bungee cord it, zip tie it, whatever. So that's what I would recommend. Heather, I appreciate you, sister. I think you're an amazing human being, and I appreciate everybody else who's on this live stream. And this serves, again, as a standalone piece of content for anybody who is like, I don't know what kit to get. That's why we build these kits this way, because we have to be able to deal with massive bleeding, airway, and respiratory. And we have a very short window of time to be able to deal with those things, or the problem is going to become permanent. And I don't want the problem to become permanent for the people that I love, because I love them. And it is my job to protect them, provide for them, and be a conduit for blessings for them. Now, yep, I'm coming. Shart right here. Shears active retention tab and turd. tactical utility retention device. Those are those. And I got to go. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom.